There's one way that I can think of that doesn't actually use a generator to make electricity, and it's probably what in my opinion, is the best way of making electricity, which is using solar power.
Oh, that's
Yeah, yes, go on.
like the best way.
Yeah, it is the best way because it's like we have in the sky, we have this big giant nuclear reactor sending energy our way for free, right? We didn't have to pay the sun to do its job. And then all we have to do, and then so there's all this energy beaming down onto our planet, and with a solar panel, right? So it's got it's made out of materials that when light hits it, it actually pushes those electrons through a circuit, and that's how it generates electricity. Yeah, so solar power has my vote. So what's the problem?
One of the hardest things here, so there's an easy assumption. So where are we living right now?
Dubai.
Absolutely. And Dubai is fairly famously sunny.
Dubai media city.
So it should be, and it is a great place for solar farms, effectively. Lots and lots of these panels taking that energy from the sun. But the other thing about Dubai is we're in the middle of a massive desert. And if you get sand and you're constantly covering those panels become deeply inefficient. So you need to find a solution that allows you to have this huge area with solar panels, but where you're constantly keeping them clear of the sand that is everywhere, which is actually a huge challenge.
Yeah, and it's also, if it gets really hot, those solar panels don't work as well. They don't. So when Eugene said efficiency, that means how much of the energy. You know what efficiency means, actually?
Like when you do something quick or slow.
Yeah. So with efficiency with solar panel is how much of the energy that's hitting it is getting converted into electrical energy. Right? So if they're covered with sand, then obviously not going to be very good, right? But also when they get hot as well, the efficiency goes down, right? Another problem is with solar power, right? Can you think of another problem with solar electricity? Solar power. Is it always sunny?
I don't know.
Was it sunny when you went to bed last night?
No.
No? Why? It was dark.
It's dark, you can't.
Yeah, so when it's dark...
Because you need sun.
Yeah, so now, and we still use electricity at nighttime, right? Yeah. So what we have to do is to store that electricity, right? So that we can use it when it's nighttime.
And that's why people just don't use solar panels enough, and they just think you can give up.
No, it doesn't. That's why they're trying to invent ways of overcoming these challenges. So making batteries to store the electricity. So you can make all the electricity you need during the day and store the amount that you need for nighttime in a battery. And at night, you take the electricity out of the battery. Or even when it's cloudy, right? That's another time when...
But then if we have some leftover electricity, for example, then why don't we give it to people who don't have electricity?
Very good. They do that.
Well, so one of the things that you can either do there's things called national grids, which is so all that electricity has to run along. Well, it covers a country or a large area. So, and that's all those wires, those running tracks for those electrons. So if I had a big house and I covered my roof in solar panels and I started getting more energy than I needed to run my house, so I had all the electricity I needed and loads more. Unless I'm connected to the grid that allows it to run backwards, I can't give that energy to anyone. So you have to have this, we call it an infrastructure. So sort of the bit that you can't see when you look out at that city is this connected to something else. So in the United Kingdom, there's quite a good national grid because it was done over many decades ago and has been built, but it's very hard to reverse engineer and say, right, we're going to connect everything to one grid that allows that flow to go both ways.
Yeah, but if you have that, you can actually sell it back to the government here that would be makes the electricity. So in other sunny places like in California, in America, which is also another very sunny place.
But then if you just give it back, it they just might make more and give it to the rich again.
No. Actually, you sell it back. You sell it to the grid.
Yeah.
So instead of you paying an electricity bill, well, you wouldn't have to be doing that, right? But instead of you paying an electricity bill, the electricity
company
will give you money for selling them electricity.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Win-win.
It's worth having.
Yeah.
So a lot of the schools, any building, I say pretty much any building that's being built now will have some sort of solar panels.
Yeah.
In its plans on its roof. A lot of the schools will have new schools.
I don't see any.
Actually, you will see them even here, like the parking meters. There's solar panels, so you'll see a solar panel above the parking meter. At Mall of the Emirates, actually, the parking lot upstairs is also, I don't know what they're powering, but there's all the solar panels over as shades over the cars.
Are they just powering those?
I'm sure they're for the mall.
Inside?
Yeah, so, but still.
I got 27 TVs on the wall, all blaring.
Having a go.
That's a lot of energy.
Yeah. So but that would have been used anyway. So at least they have the solar panels to be powering that.
But how do you know that your amounts of electricity are needed and then you won't have to waste electricity?
Yeah, so engineers would calculate this.
They so again, I'm going back to when many years ago when I was a kid. So the national grid and the energy company would have to know when demand was going to really increase.
Yeah,
so
Kettle.
I think it was the Kettle. So the famous TV programs, when the TV programs stopped and went to an advert, they knew that millions of households across the country were going to go into their kitchen and turn the kettle on, which suddenly created this huge demand in electricity. So they had to plan for when everyone was going to put the kettle on to watch their favourite TV programme. So you look and you study and you look at data and find out when people are using most electricity.
Yeah.
You mean the kettle on the stove?
Yes.
The kettle on the stove.
Or the electric kettle.
The electric kettle. I'm not that old. Maybe I am.